Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of Merck Biopharma Fertility Team. I am Dr. Bharat Mahajan. We'll take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking out time from your busy schedule and attending this meeting. In this currently trying time in COVID-19, I hope each one of you are safe and taking proper care of yourself. Coming to today's meeting, it's our privilege to be associated with Academy of Clinical Embryologists to have a very good scientific webinar along with the top-notch panelists. So with this, I will welcome Dr. Swaminathan to initiate the meeting. So before he initiate the meeting, just a few lines for Dr. Swaminathan. I think everyone knows about Dr. Swaminathan. He is currently the president of Academy of Clinical Embryologists in India, and he is the scientific director of Santanic Center for Reproductive Medicine, Mangalore. Dr. Swaminathan, please.
Good evening, friends. Thank you, Mahajan, for the nice introduction. I welcome everybody for this wonderful first webinar from ACE family officially. This we want to coin that term talkie, that is talk on embryology, very specific and particularly very practical aspects, small topics, capsules, short period, so that we don't want to bombard with too much of events as we all undergoing COVID plus Zoom issues. So it will be very crisp and very practical oriented by our masters, people who gained experience years together and developed their own technology, and they are successful in this field. And so this is our initiative. This will continue maybe every 6 to 8 weeks once. It's a capsule manner. So here I will finish and I will hand over this event proceedings further to Dr. Priya Kannan and Ved Prakash. Regarding Priya Kannan, as you all know that she is our past president and she is MC from Australia and well-known embryologist and well-known public figure in our academic arena. And you can see her every weekend somewhere in online now. Previously we were seeing offline. So it's very good, very enthusiastic, very academic. It's a great inspiration for me to take academics further, and I'm happy to introduce her as one moderator. And next is our Ved Prakash. He is our current vice president of ACE. Again, he is a very academic, active person, and he started a online teaching program called iHera, which is very successful, doing fantastic work every 15 days, very systematically he is doing, and it's a great thing. We wish him all the very best in his endeavor. And here I finish. I will hand over the further proceedings to Dr. Priya Kannan and Dr. Ved Prakash. Thank you. All the best. Stay safe.
Thank you, Swami. Priya, unmute yourself.
Thank you, Swami, for that kind introduction. And now over to the first speaker. Our first speaker is Alex Varghese. He is presently the scientific director of Astra Fertility Clinic, Canada. He is also the laboratory director, Kraft Hospital and Research Center, faculty of postgraduate course, MSc course in clinical embryology conducted by Jesus University, Gunashila IVF of Bangalore. He is the founder of lifeinvitro.com, the online knowledge sharing platform in assisted reproduction. He is the past president and the current chairman, scientific activities of Academy of Clinical Embryologists of India. He is the American Center for Reproductive Medicine, Cleveland Clinic, USA. Published more than 20 research articles in peer-reviewed journals indexed in PubMed with more than 1,360 citations and a H index of 14. He's edited 9 books in assisted reproductive technologies, published by Springer, Taylor and Francis, and JP Medical Publishers as well. And above all this, he's a great friend and he's guided ACE and a lot of embryologists around India as well. And over to you, Alex, for your topic.
Thank you, Dr. Priya, for the nice introduction. And I would like to thank Academy of Clinical Embryologists for giving me this opportunity to talk on this initiative by Dr. Swaminathan. I like the term what not to do in IVF, more of practical aspects with the capsules of the day-to-day activities. So can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Share my screen. Can you see?
Yes.
Yes, we can see, Alex. But you might have to go on the slideshow.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah. Is it okay now?
See,
The
Alex.
view. Okay, fine. So today I am going to talk about the culture media, the handling part of
Okay,
it.
now it's fine.
Not too much on the.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Right. So the key learning points of today's lecture are these points that we will just brief, starting from the transportation to the cold storage to some aspect of the handling of the media. And many of you might be have seen this publication. You know that the Upper Egypt congresses that is happening in recent times are coming out with nice guidelines and consensus on IVF aspects. And the recent publication that came out in RBM online on the IVF culture media or conditions, there was a good consensus. That is, there is only one thing that is truly important in IVF laboratory, everything. That is a freely available publication. And also recently, we had a good book published by Professor Patrick Kane, who developed the tubal fluid media, human tubal fluid, culture media solutions and systems in human ART. These are a good start and a good reference for each laboratory. In a nutshell, the embryo culture is more than the media. That is what I wanted to say in the beginning. And this year, the Manchester group led by Dr. Daniel Bryson group has published an interesting paper in Human Reproduction Open. And they looked at more than 75,000 cycles from HFEA registry from a 46 IVF clinic. The study question was that whether the culture conditions like culture media, oxygen level, and the incubators, whether it will affect the live birth rate. And what is the summary answer? And they found a statistically significant difference in the live birth between the 8 culture media system they analyzed. We hear a lot of discussion that there is no difference between the culture media, but this study shows that because it's a huge study, shows that there is some difference in some culture media. And interestingly, the study also found the blastocyst culture had increased the risk of preterm birth. Even they controlled the oxygen tension and the other parameters in the multivariate analysis. So, with that background, let us talk about the culture media that comes to our lab or your laboratory. The first and foremost thing when a media comes is that we look for the certificate of analysis. You know that all the medias are manufactured in a good manufacturing facility or GMP facility, and we know that it is having a ME or mouse embryos marked. And every batch or lot of media, there is a certificate of analysis comes with either you can request them or you can get it online. It's always better to keep the record of certificate analysis with each batch of media that you are receiving. And this is just a glimpse of how it looked like. The HEPIS media or the fertilization media on the right. Always we look at the two important things. That's the pH of the media, what the company got in the particular lot of media they manufactured. And second thing is the osmolality. I think these two things should be aware by each person handling the culture media. And the transportation is another area of variations. You know that there are more than 200 variables in the IVF laboratory that can affect the outcome. Transportation, especially in our country, like we face a lot of problems since most of the medias are manufactured in Europe or in the North America or Australia, and we get it in our country, and there is a lot of sub-distributors. This is a nice paper, a free paper that was done by the South African group by Dr. Guiser, and in the conclusion they says that the courier service or company representatives which manage the transport and delivery of the culture media in a timely manner, they play a vital role in failure or success in the RT laboratory. And also the protracted customs clearance can also have a major impact on the quality of the media. Maybe some of you who are, we in India, more than 2,000 IVF clinics are there, and more than 50% of them are batch IVF centers. Even I had an experience, we got the media, and within 1 hour, the sperm, when we were preparing it, all become non-motile. We got the media in the, this happened in one of the batch IVF centers a few years back. We got the media in the cool and pack. Maybe the thing is that the person, the sub-distributor, when it was not properly stored, the media. So that things has to be taken into consideration. And also another important thing need to be taken into consideration is that we don't have the temperature logging mechanism for the courier services. In some country they have, maybe the societies can come together and recommend these things to the companies who are importing the media. Another important area is the cold storage. And we know that we get the media in the styrofoam box, and in some centers I have seen the technicians, maybe in the weekend, who receive the media, or the reception people receive the media, and they stuck that into the kitchen refrigerator kind of thing that is present in the laboratory. And there may be a lot of food items, maybe a lot of drugs in that refrigerator. There should be a dedicated refrigerator. I think that also should be a medical refrigerator. That is a must for the IVF laboratory. And another important thing to be considered is whether the media is fit for purpose. Before your batch is started, we always look only the digital displays, and even if some centers in Western country, they do the MEA test on the new batch of media, but that commercially available hamster mouse embryos are not available in our country. Instead, maybe you can do a sperm survival study for 24 hours, especially I'm talking about the centers where they are doing the batch IVF, where they batch some more than huge number of patients. And one should analyze the incubator CO2 and oxygen measurement before the start of the batch. Another thing that being missed in many centers is the pH measurement. And always there is a scapegoat. Everybody knows that always the first thing that comes to the mind of the people when something goes wrong is the culture media. That should not be the case. And also when you introduce a new culture media to your laboratory, and if you're happy with the media for some time, all of a sudden you want to change the media, the thing is that one should revalidate and optimize your new culture system for the requirement of the new lot of the media. Maybe your first media that you are using for years are adjusted to your culture condition of 6% CO2, whatever it is. And when you get a new batch of media, I think you should adjust. You should talk to the manufacturer, and you should talk to your peers who are using this same colleagues or using the same media, and then you take a proper optimal conditions. Then you analyze the data, and then you judge whether it is a good, bad, or ugly. And helicoating of the culture media, that is not a good practice. You know that many of some of the centers, they do that thing. They get a bulk media and they helicoat in the 5 ml Falcon tubes, but these Falcon tubes or this kind of 5 ml tubes, you don't know the VOC level, the leaching level of a VOC from this polystyrene tube. So it is not a good practice. Maybe instead you get a small bottles of the media that can be utilized immediately, and you can throw the bottle. And also the things that comes in contact with the culture media also need to be verified. I see many clinics are still using the blue label Falcon dishes. That should not be the case. Nowadays, you get a BD Falcon IVF grade MEA tested, endotoxin tested dishes, and a lot of companies like Vitrolife and Sparmed, so many companies now have come out with IVF grade dishes. That kind of a plasticware should be used, which are having endotoxin and MEA tested. And when you talk about the culture media preparation, we can speak about the large centers and the small centers, or low resource, or the batch IVF centers. In large centers, when they're handling media for a huge number of cases, many of you might be knowing that the Cairo Consensus on Air Quality says that you should have at least ISO Class 7 facility. And it would be ideal if you get a Class 5 kind of ISO situation, but that is not that feasible. You can get a vertical laminar flow cabinet dedicated for the culture media preparation with alpha filtration. You know that HEPA gives a 0.3 micron filtration of the particles, alpha gives 0.1 micron. That really gives ISO class 3 or 4 kind of a grade, and you don't need a heated stage for that. You can have a UV option nowadays. Everybody is looking for a UVC options with the pandemic situations. And you can also have a pre-filter that is made of activated carbon. So this is a good option for the large centers where there is enough space for the dish preparation. But when it comes to the batch IVF centers, dish preparation, you saw a lot of problems, like maybe you start the batch in the morning 9 o'clock and the specialist comes only in the early morning by 8 o'clock. And you always see a grieving, frustrated the clinician at the side. So this should be avoided. One should always prepare the dishes the previous day. And in our country and many countries, still people use that large 150-liter CO2 incubator still in the IVF laboratory that we borrowed from the cell culture scenario. Ideal should be a 40-50-liter tri-gas incubator that doesn't take up much the gases. And the quality of the local gas is also very important. And one should know, what you're seeing here, you can get it for 1,500 rupees. I would be happy if you see this kind of good quality gases in the laboratory. Definitely it comes with less miscarriages. On the left hand side, that comes maybe with more than 30-40% miscarriages. And this high quality pure gases will definitely will reduce that variable. So that need to be considered very seriously by the centers. But only problem is that the cost is little high. But that too comes with the quality comes with a price always. And another important thing is that how you prepare the dish. You know that there are different ways of preparing the dishes. Many variabilities there across the laboratory. And there is also kind of a culture of keeping the oil for extended time in the laboratory. And the recent studies with the online pH meter shows that it takes approximately 24 hours to equilibrate the media in a proper way that is covered with oil. And this practice should not be there of keeping the bottles inside the incubator the overnight so that next day the embryologists come and the prepare the dishes. That is not a good practice. What happens is that only in the above part, the surface regions only get the equilibration with a pH of 7.3, but the bottom may not get equilibrated properly. So that practice should not be done. And another practice that we see is that you get a large box incubator when somebody start a new laboratory, and after a few years, so they buy a benchtop incubator like a Ming or the Planner or whatever it is. And still people culture the embryos or the up to zygote or the pre-equilibration in the CO2 only environment. Then they change to the other box incubator or the benchtop incubator, that or hypoxic condition. If you do the hypoxic culture, I think it should start from the beginning. That is from the starting of the equilibration. And also the culture media handling, when you use this kind of heating blocks, it should totally cover the whole area of the tubes, and not the halfway should not be open or exposed. That is not a good thing. Another is the oil that we use in the culture media. You know that there is a lot of toxicity, photooxidation or peroxidation might happen. And there was a nice study that published in the Nature Journal Scientific Reports. They looked at two mineral oils for the study, and they analyzed, they found 18 VOCs that has been given here in the Sigma oil and the Nid oil, Dacon oil. And what they did was that after that, they laid this oil in the culture media. Again, they analyzed the presence of the VOC in the culture media. Then you can see, even after putting this oil on the media, they got this many VOCs in the culture media. That shows that VOCs can leach into the culture media. So with that in mind, you have to analyze whether when you are doing the continuous culture for 5 to 6 day cultures in a dry incubators, the studies by Dr. Zain group and many others shows that the continuous culture need a kind of a reanalysis. One should may use humidified incubation instead of the dry incubator. And also, one should analyze the room humidity, whether it is optimal or not. And you should use appropriate medium volume and sufficient oil overlay and oil type, whether it's a paraffin or a heavy oil. Like nobody has to worry about if you are using a dry incubators. If you the scientist says that if you're using a 4.5 ml of media, instead you can use maybe 6 ml of oil, so thick layer of oil, so that the operation may not happen. And also maybe you can use, instead of a light oil, you can use a heavy oil, but that need a more time to equilibrate. And the take home message is that the few point from this discussion: no open cultures, that's not a good thing. Do not use expired culture media. I know that some people, there was some recent studies that when you use the media that towards the expiry date, and they looked at the effect of this on the live birth rate and the neonatal outcomes. So that was not a good thing. And do not keep the oil for extended period in incubator, and determine your air quality before planning or all blast culture. There is a kind of a tendency to go for a blastocyst culture for every program, but you should analyze your culture system and environment before you go for that. And do not use a prepared ICSI dish for incubator for many days and use it again and again. And always I have a reservation for a microtrope culture. We know that there is a lot of embryotropic factors will help each other with the embryos when co-culturing multiple embryos. But when you look at our cities in India and many other countries, we have to see the quality of the air, and we have to see whether the HU systems are properly working, whether it can remove all these things. Then you go for the kind of a culture system, so up to the blastocyst for 5 to 6 days, and also check for the turbidity of the media, and also record the shelf life of each lot of the culture media if it comes to the laboratory. Do not aliquot, and prepare and equilibrate the dishes on day prior to the OPU. And you know that Barker hypothesis on development of origin of adult health and diseases that says about the fetal origin, how it affects the later life, later health of the baby in the adult stage. But now it is you can come down to in vitro condition, how you treat the embryos. So in nutshell, to avoid those kind of bad effects, we should work on everything. Everything is important that comes into touch with the culture media. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex, for that excellent, to the point, very crisp and extremely practical tips on how not to handle media. We will take all the questions at the end of both the talks. I now request Ved to introduce the next speaker and for the next speaker to come on.
Thank you, Dr. Priya, and very nice presentation from Dr. Alex. Thank you, Dr. Alex. Now we move to our second speaker, Dr. Sanjay Shukla. He is the lab director, Baheti Hospital and Shivani IVF and Fertility Center, Jaipur. And he's the PhD in life sciences. He's done fellowship in the biology of reproduction from Center D Studios and Gynecologia Reproduction, Argentina. And he's the General Secretary of ACE. And he's also Chairman of Academic Wing ACE and editor of Newsletter of ACE. Over to Dr. Sanjay Shukla. He is going to speak on gamete handling. I think Dr. Sanjay Shukla has left. There is some problem with his.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was there just now, like, and then, but then I don't see his name just now.
Yeah, he is not here.
Maybe network issue. 1 minute. I'll just check.
So
In that case, you can continue with the questions
yeah. You can continue with the questions.
Okay.
with
So we will
Alex. Yeah.
continue with the questions
Yeah.
for Alex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Alex, I think,
Yeah.
whichever, I think we can go ahead and you can.
Hello.
Alex, can you hear?
I didn't get the question. What is that?
Okay, I'm just going to read out the question. So one by one, the participants have sent us questions. So I'll just start with, there are lots.
Yeah.
However, the first one, we'll go with this. Would you please suggest a couple of agencies who supply really high quality CO2 gas? What are your choices, if you have any?
The thing is that maybe you can speak to the incubator of the product companies. They would be the right persons because they will be knowing about the actual product because we don't have any proper medical grading system in India for the CO2 or nitrogen gases.
Yes.
And I know that a few names that come across my like Praxair, Inox, Alchem, and Faruka. I think these are some of the companies based out of Mumbai, Gujarat, and Bangalore. I think the only thing is that you have to speak to their manager, and you should get a certificate of analysis from each batch, and should make, because there is some kind of quality systems when they fill the gas in those kind of cylinders. It should be a clean and tidy, good quality cylinders, and that is very important. Yeah.
As an add-on to that question, this is my doubt. Whenever we receive a cylinder, even if it is from a very good company, we don't seem to, there is no, very rarely, there is not a uniformity of the quality. Do you have any suggestions or something? Because we go through one batch of cultures and then we see they are not good. So do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, actually, we recently, when we got a new incubator in the clinic I am associated here, we were doing the validation study for the incubator. And what we found, we connected the local gas, CO2 gas. We were doing a sperm survival study. And even we connected with a good quality CO2 gas in the incubator, but the nitrogen, you know that it takes up a lot of, within 1 week it get over. So we thought that we will use the local guys supply. So unfortunately that sperm survival went down to around 30% compared to the other control. So when we connected the both, because when you know that in the whole volume in an incubator, major portion of the volume is taken up by the nitrogen gas when it's a dry gas. So it is not only the CO2, you should also make sure that you get a nitrogen gas also from the good company. But only problem is it cost, I think, around 26,000 rupees for, I think, 40 liters gas. But I think every sender should get that kind of ultra pure gas. And also you should make sure that you connect with that inline filter, activated carbon filters. Yeah.
Yes. That's a very key point to know. Dr. Sanjay is here now, so I guess we'll go ahead with the talk.
Sorry guys, some technical glitches. So,
Ved, do you want to start with the introduction again since he is here, or?
We can start.
Yep.
So our next speaker is Dr. Sanjay Shukla. He is Lab Director, Bahiti Hospital and Shivani IVF and Fertility Center, Jaipur. And he's done PhD in Life Sciences. He's done fellowship in 2006 in the Biology of Reproduction from Center B Studios and Gynecologia Reproduction from Argentina. And he is the General Secretary of ACE. He is also Chairman Academic Wing of ACE and Editor Newsletter of ACE. And he is going to speak on gamete handling. Over to Dr. Sanjay Shukla.
thank you very much, moderators, for nice introduction. And congratulations, Dr. Alex, for such a crisp and very to the point presentation. You also made my job little easier, covering many of the aspects which are probably common as far as handling of gametes and handling of media is concerned. So let me share my screen. Is it visible?
Yeah.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, fine. So what we are learning today, there are some of the things which were common, as I mentioned in Dr. Alex's talk too. But as far as handling gamete is concerned, there are a few things which I would like to emphasize on, like the knowing one's job, what we are going to do and what we are supposed to do, and what is the difference between IVF and nature, like what happens in nature, are we doing the same thing? Again, there are certain points like the environment, the air quality, temperature, pH, osmolarity, etc., which were common while we were discussing the media handling. And there are a few things also like the electromagnetic radiation and its effect on the gamete handling and consequences, and the time. So we'll go one by one. The first thing first, it is about knowing one's job. So we always, like from the day of inception of ACE, we have tried to give this message to the juniors and the newcomers that you must know what you are going to do, because embryology is not just a job, it's a responsibility. We are handling potential human beings. So when I talk, I was preparing, this man's picture came to my mind, and probably you are wondering what this man is doing here. But he is probably the perfect person to exemplify. He is probably the best survival guide in the world at the moment. And we can assume that probably he is the one who knows his job perfectly. He can survive in any terrain, any environment, any condition, and come out victorious. So this is something, and this man is a very good example of knowing your job. But the thing is that when we watch his shows, we sometimes assume that it is his experience with the different conditions in the world when he was serving military in the British military. So it's not just the experience that makes him unique, but also behind the scene, he does his homework well. He reads a lot. He knows everything about the conditions that he can face, the wildlife that he can encounter, and all other possibilities. So it's not just the experience and practical things, but also the reading that makes him perfect. So there are few things which stands true when you start any job or any project, and these are especially true in science, because when we started learning science, our teacher taught us that there are certain things, and first thing in science starts with the questioning. And the famous 5 W's of science, or for that matter any science, is who, what, why, where, when, but the most important thing is how. Like, who is going to do the job? In embryology, not everyone can do everything. You learn there is a hierarchy. From the seniors you learn, and then you acquire the skill and knowledge, and then you promote further, and then you start doing little more complex things. You must know what you are doing and what are the consequences of what you are doing. So you also know that why you are doing that thing. Where in different areas of embryology, you do different things. So where you need to do what, that is also important, and when. But the most important is how, because how you do the things makes a lot of difference in your outcome. So again, the same thing, repetition of Dr. Alex's slide. It is about the Cairo consensus. And again, the same emphasis that everything matters in your IVF laboratory. Right from yourself, like when I was in my research days, when I entered my laboratory, my boss first thing told me is that whenever anything goes wrong, the troubleshooting starts with me. That is the person, the operator who is doing it. Whether am I doing anything wrong, whether all the things, all the SOPs, all the equipment, all the conditions are perfect as per the schedule, as per the plan. So this particular reference is like Bible for us, and we must follow everything that is good laboratory practices tells us. This is again a very famous picture from David Gardner's book, and it reveals that the susceptibility of the gametes, especially this picture tells us about the female gamete, but this particular image is telling about the post-fertilization. So they use the term embryo development and embryo susceptibility. The most susceptible of all those stages is the fertilized oocyte or zygote. So we must know that what we are doing in IVF is not exactly that happens in nature. Probably we are nowhere near what happens in nature. We know just a little of, or you can say it's just our knowledge about the embryology, human embryology is just a tip of an iceberg. So we are very I mean, this science is in infancy. So what we are doing, we are trying to mimic what happens in nature, but it is not exactly what happens in nature. So everything that we do affects the quality of the oocytes, the quality of sperms, and ultimately quality of embryos and resulting fetus. So again, if we go further back, like we are discussing the handling of gametes, so we go before the eggs fertilize. We have an oocyte with us, an oocyte corona complex, and then like we receive it from the OT, and then we start handling the oocytes. So the susceptibility of an oocyte increases when we denude it. So the corona complex, the cumulus cells, they give a certain protection to the oocytes. It also helps in regulating metabolism. It helps in regulating the intrinsic pH of the oocyte. So once you strip the oocyte, it becomes even more susceptible to the physical and chemical and environmental stresses. We often learn about this and often hear in the lectures about the susceptibility of the oocytes. They are very delicate, but we seldom hear about the susceptibility of sperms. Mind you, sperms are also very susceptible to such stresses, and we must take care of these sperms while handling them, while preparing them. environment and air quality, as Dr. Alex mentioned, and we have this very good graph from Sandro Estreves. Actually, he has taken it from Tony Anderson's study. So you can see that the indoor air quality is far more. In this study, he showed that it is fivefold more polluted than the outside air. And especially in countries like India, where we have metro cities which are so polluted that they are in the highest polluted cities in world. This air quality quotient may be even more bad in our laboratories, inside the laboratories. So these, especially VOCs, are coming from everything that is there in our laboratories, from the personnel, from the equipment and materials, and the cells and fluids, and all those things that are coming in our laboratories. Even the material that is being used for the construction of the laboratory. This is another milestone paper from Dean Morbeck. This gives us a clear picture that how we started learning about the air quality importance in IVF in last 3 decades. Like he studied from 1990s. So you can see that we started learning about the indoor air quality, and then post 2000, I mean in this decade 2000 to 2010, we started implementing certain measures to improve the air quality. And nowadays, because this was just like for 5 years up to 2015, but now we have completed this decade also. So now we have even more sophisticated, more better quality air purifiers and air quality improvers to have installed in our laboratories. So to summarize this thing, because I always give importance to this and I always try to emphasize that air quality impacts outcomes. Air quality in IVF labs may be manifold contaminated than outside air. Anything and everything that we use in our labs could be a source of VOCs. Specific guidelines for air quality in the IVF labs are lacking, like what we have. Fortunately, ICMR guidelines are not that robust and not that specified, but still the other guidelines also are not very specific about the air quality in IVF labs. Specialized filter systems are needed to control the VOCs. And not just VOCs, even the chemical air contaminants are equally dangerous. The air handling units do need maintenance, and the filters do have a lifespan. It's not like that you just install the air handling units and forget to clean and change the filters at the required time interval. Designing the ideal lab is much more complicated than we think. Unfortunately, in our country, we feel that we are the master of all, and we design ourselves the laboratory, we design the entire IVF unit, and we design it nicely. We do very good cosmetic work, very aesthetic work, but we are not expert in handling all those things which are done by the specialized engineers and architects and material scientists. So we must take help from them and then design our laboratories. So when we handle the gametes, may it be oocyte and sperms, we know that these gametes are very temperature sensitive, and we have different equipment, different warmers, different incubators to take care of this temperature control. The very subtle change in temperature may damage the spindle in the oocyte, and we do not know about this. These oocytes may develop into embryos, but we do not know how the remodeling, how the rearrangement of a spindle has occurred, and what could be the effect in the fetus. Similarly, of course, the effect of temperature is well known in the oocytes, well studied in the oocytes, but lesser is studied in the sperms. But again, it is also as important as the oocyte handling. And the temperature, not just the temperature handling, but also other things also starts right from the beginning, like from the origin, where we start receiving oocytes, maybe in the ovum pickup room. So the moment we start oocyte retrieval, the temperature should be maintained. So we should have robust and well controlled temperature system, like the test tube warmers and all, so that the oocyte don't encounter the temperature shock. So does the, before I forget, because it is very important, it is a shear stress caused by the oocyte retrieval needles and the pressure that we have. These things which we often neglect, and we do not know the effect of those things. The pressure, if it is not perfect, if it is not, maybe it is, if it is more, it may squeeze the oocyte corona complex. Sometimes it may strip off the cumulus. So all those things must be well validated before we start actually the procedure. Similarly, when we receive the sperms, the temperature and the other things should be taken care of. You should not keep the sperm sample on the I mean, like in North India, we have very a wide range of temperature differential. In winters, we have something around 4 or 5 degrees, sometimes even 0, and sometimes even sub-zero. And in summers, we reach up to 40s. So these, all those things, they affect the quality of the gametes at the origin only. So these are the things that we should keep in mind. pH, Dr. Alex has very well explained that the pH has very deep impact on the quality of the embryos and culture system. Unfortunately, we are not 100% sure what the actual pH that we should work, because every stage of the embryo development needs very fine adjustment of pH, which we do not do in our laboratories, because our system is somehow or somewhat stationary, somewhat stagnant. We have fixed pH settings in our incubator, so we cannot keep on. Maybe sometimes when we have the things like microfluidic culture system, when we can control the pH also, temperature also at different stages, could be the scene could be different. But at the moment, we do not have that thing. So again, the stripped oocyte, as I mentioned, the cumulus cells, they also help regulating the pH. So if we have denuded them, we should immediately keep them in the incubators, so that they are not exposed to the temperature and pH shift that could be detrimental. Similarly, sperms, they also feel the effect of stress caused by the pH. I have observed in many laboratories the sperm preparation medium, probably mostly they use the HIPES based medium, and they keep it in the CO2 incubators. this is something like I'm not able to understand this thing. And
Dr. Sanjay, you are here?
I think some connection problem. Priya, can you take over for questions with Alex?
Yes, definitely we'll
Yeah,
do that.
so that sometimes this technical hitches, it's very difficult, so that we can fill up like this.
Yes, so
Yeah.
when Sanjay comes back, we can
Continue that, yeah.
resume his talk.
Yeah.
Okay, there are very interesting questions which has come around, Alex. There was another question which I thought was a good one, and just a second, let me go through one by one. Another very important and nice question is how much important is time management during handling of embryos? Of course, Sanjay would be taking, but I thought if that's not there, then the next question: why embryo growth seems fast with one-step media as compared to sequential? Does it have any major effect on take-home baby rate?
So far the meta-analysis doesn't show much difference between the sequential media and the single-step media. That the person who has put this question is right. Maybe in the initial days, I think a few years back when this media came out, single-step media, we were seeing more early compaction by day 3 compared to the sequential media. I also have seen that. Maybe that is a good kind of a biomarker. Maybe he's back.
No, that's Ved.
Okay. And yeah, so the study doesn't show any differences. But recently I came across one study from Stanford by Dr. Barry Burr. They compared between that published in JARC journal, and they found more kind of aneuploidy in the embryos that is cultured, also cultured in the single-step media. Yeah, but that's maybe the numbers are not enough. But when we because now the world is going towards us, the single-step media, and maybe it is like the ICSI when it came. It is said that the technology before science. We started everything all on a sudden, and maybe the single-step media is very convenient for everyone. The mistakes are less, and for embryologists it's very convenient. But I think in a long time, I think control studies or randomized control studies with a huge number of patients is needed to take a real conclusion about which is what, because still we are not kind of really simulating the proper conditions. Yeah.
Can sperm wash medium be used as a substitute for herpes media and vice versa?
Sperm media for
sperm wash media.
Okay. Usually the sperm wash media is either herpes or MOPS media. Okay, so that is also used for many handling purposes. But you have to make sure that the pK value of usually that MOPS media at 37 degree will have a pH of only 7.02 or something like that. I think one has to be very careful when they are using it for the denuded oocyte. Maybe you should use a media that contain both herpes and MOPS together. There are nowadays you get that kind of media that really gives because the pH at the room temperature and 37 degrees Celsius will be different. So one should use the proper buffered media for when handling that denuded oocyte. That is what now Dr. Shukla is discussing.
There's another question. How to aliquot media for a single patient?
Never ever aliquot media.
Yeah,
I
that's what
think
you
that is
just
what
told.
Dr. Patrick Kin, the
Yes.
father, we can say the father figure in our field, he also suggested. That's why now all the companies are coming out with the 10 ml vials.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
Sanjay ji is
Sanjay
back,
ji
so
is
I
back.
guess
Okay.
we'll come back to the lecture and come back to the questions again.
Sanjay ji has become commercial advertisement.
True, true, agree.
Yeah, technical issues, no issues, no issues. It's nice. Yeah.
Okay. So is my slide visible?
Yes, it is
Yes.
visible.
Okay, fine. So,
But one half also says you're sharing your screen.
okay.
The other half, we see the semen pH affects sperm motility and capacitation.
Make it full screen, I think.
Yes.
Yes, fine, fine.
Yeah, fine.
So, as I was discussing about the effect of pH, we know there are, a huge chunk of literature available about the effect of pH on the oocytes and embryos, but less is available on the effect of pH on the sperms. So it's a nice study, a Chinese one, that have studied. They prepared sperm and they kept at different pHs like 5.2, 6.2, 7.2 and 8.2, and they analyzed total sperm motility, progressive motility, hyposmotic swelling rate and sperm penetration. And they observed that the effect on these parameters was similar at slightly alkaline pH 7.2 and 8.2, but these parameters decreased at acidic pHs. Similarly, they also studied the sodium potassium ATPase activity at different pHs and measured, and their sorry the ATPase activity substantially decreased, and the sperm movement and capacitation was affected severely at acidic level. So we must take care of this, that not only the oocytes but even the sperms are very delicate. Osmolality, Dr. Alex described how to prepare the dishes, how to handle media, how osmolarity and osmolality can be detrimental, the changes in the osmolality, and we must work at the defined range of osmolality all the time in our laboratories. Again, one thing which is very simple but very important, which like my personal observation is that people keep the media, especially the buffer, like the mops or hippies buffer, in these test tube warmers and in the Falcon tubes, which are not airtight, not screw cap tubes, and they keep it for many days there. And they believe that if it is readily available, the warm medium, their workload can be little more, less, and it can ease their work. But bear in mind that the medium keeps on evaporating and this changes the osmolarity. So not only the dishes that are needed very meticulous attention, but also the sperms or the gamete handling medium, because you are handling gametes, you are washing your oocytes and unfertilized eggs and denuding outside the incubator and using these mops or hippies buffer. So the osmolality of these media also need to be very carefully monitored. We all use different electronic gadgets. They have become a part of our life. Even our laboratories, we have many things, the electronic, like the computers, the laptops, the Wi-Fi, even our incubators, they are equipped with the electronics. So they all emit electromagnetic radiations. We have many studies, I mean, the literature is full with the studies that show their effect on the human bodies, even the reproductive system. But there are fewer studies that show the effect of these electromagnetic radiation on the oocytes or sperms. There are limitations because you cannot expose human oocytes or sperms, and then maybe sometimes you can do that with the sperms but not oocytes. So because of ethical and legal reasons, obviously. So but when they can affect our tissues, our body, which is equipped with the immuno system, what could they do to the immunity? I mean, the immune system less gametes, and what effect they could have, you never know, and this could lead to maybe the epigenetic changes, and they may reflect or translate later in the progeny, maybe 5 to 10, 20 years after the birth. So we should minimize the use of electronics in our laboratories. Also, they are distracting. So when we are very focused, we are doing very sensitive job, we should avoid taking the cell phones and other such things which can distract us in the laboratory. Time is very important thing. Are all these steps in embryology is time sensitive and time specific. We should be very quick. We should be very swift while handling the gametes, because the more we handle them outside the incubators, we are exposing them to the stresses, the physical stress and other stresses. So we have to be very quick and very swift and very meticulous, because in doing things in a haste may be more dangerous than doing it very meticulously. So you do it quickly, but with focused mind, and do it because the things are time specific. You should do everything at the specific time. If you are denuding the eggs immediately, it is important that once you denude them, you should immediately inseminate them. So it is not like, so there are studies that show you when that optimum time is, when you should inseminate, when you should do ICSI, when you should denude them. So all those things. Again, another thing which when we were discussing this, and Dr. Alex mentioned me about the batch IVF. It is very common practice in our country that when we start doing batch IVF in the morning, some staff is assigned to collect the semen samples, and they collect those samples in the morning itself, and those samples are kept on the bench, maybe the warm bench, for hours, keeping the sperms, the semen samples, for longer time, exposing them to the, the sperms exposed to the seminal plasma for longer period of time are shown to have detrimental effect. So there are ROS, there are dead sperms, there are leukocytes, there are other elements, microbes, and maybe some other medicines that the patient that they are taking. Anything that could be there in seminal plasma could be detrimental, and these things may alter the sperm DNA. They could have also epigenetic effects. So we do not know those things. They can hamper the fertilizing capacity of the sperms if we delay the semen processing. And again, when we process the sperms, we should keep in mind that every step, even the centrifuging, the washing, the using of colloidal silica, everything can have detrimental effects. So these days, like we know that the people are moving away from the centrifugation techniques and using microchips and microfluidics, another method as well. So we should keep this in mind, especially when we are doing batch IVF, that these things should not be kept, the sperm samples, for longer period of time. If you are doing a batch IVF, keep an andrologist at hand who prepares the semen sample. And then once the samples are prepared, it is better that we keep them at the room temperature, not in the 37 degrees centigrade, because the metabolism is fast and this could also lead to decreased quality of the sperms. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjay. Very nice presentation, and I hope we all understand how to handle the gametes and as well as media in our day-to-day practice in the IVF lab. So now we can proceed for questions. So Priya, can we start now?
Yes. To Alex, there is a question. Since you have mentioned about cold chain previously, here the question is, to check the cold chain of media, what are the things that we can do? In metro, the transportation is different, and in a small city or a medium city is different. So what are the precautions to be taken?
That is $1 million question. I think the guidelines should come from all the societies in the fertility field. Like we have to make sure that maybe some guidelines should go, like there should be a data logger. Once the media is shipped from their not factory, like definitely there is a factory data logger is there until customs comes and it reaches to the distributor. But after that, what happens? Whether the media coming from Delhi, Mumbai, wherever cities to the small cities in India, there is no data log or systems available. Maybe I think we should, as a society, I think we should initiate that thing. That will definitely make a lot of differences in the quality of the media. Second is that the clinics should do a sperm survival study at least before they put that into action, the media. So I think that is the simplest thing you can do 24 hours. Even it is not a good biomarker, but that is settling that it will serve the purpose.
Okay, that is a very good answer, and he has also given a very practical way of seeing how the media is doing. There is another question. This question we will take to Dr. Sanjay Shukla. How to optimize lab room humidity in the areas near the sea?
Great. So,
such as Chennai, like, you're far away, but we are in Chennai. You can think of us and give us some tips.
That's true. So, like the air handling units, they are good enough to take care of the relative humidity that is there in our laboratories. But if we have, excessive humidity, so what we can do is we can install a portable dehumidifier in the laboratory. So the air conditioning itself takes care of the humidity, but if it is an excessive humidity, we can at least have a dehumidifier. But again, the humidity is discomfort to the operator more than the gametes, because if you are handling the gametes for a little while and keeping them in the incubators, so they are happy, but the operator may feel discomfort while handling things. So dehumidifier can solve the problem for a certain extent.
Another question for you, Sanjay ji. How important is the time management during handling of embryos?
Oh, it is a paramount importance. So again, there should be, which is probably lacking in our country, there should be a workload to staff ratio, so that everything is not on just one person. If you have different people to handle different things, the time management becomes easier. So, and this is especially true when you are doing batch IVF. So time is of prime importance.
So if you can give a rough idea of, because nowadays we don't use the phenol red marked media much, we use the plain media. Before we used to use, so now then we used to see the change in the color, And then we used to be aware that, okay, fine, it's changing color, and we used to put it back into the incubator. Nowadays, it is not there, the pH indicators in the media. So, for example, can you give us a rule of thumb, like how many seconds or how many minutes? Probably somebody should restrict the handling of the dishes outside of the incubator.
It's hard to say because there are many other things also, but still there is no thumb rule, but you should be quick enough. Like what I do in my laboratory, the other things like handling gametes, especially the oocytes. So we do mostly once at a time. So, like if I have a few a few oocytes in my dish, I immediately keep them. Transfer them in the incubator and wait for the other tubes to come. So I don't keep on waiting for that. Another thing which probably I can give this message to the clinicians, that we have shifted from classical superovulation to minimal stimulation. So we do not have too many eggs. Of course, this can happen in isolated cases like PCO when we have a lot of eggs. But handling gametes, especially oocytes, is more sensitive to time because you are handling them outside. Some people have sort of portable incubators at the bench, so they can keep the oocytes in the transition time to the in this incubator, or the like what we used to use in earlier days, the inverted keep connected to the CO2 or the triple gas, and keep the dishes in that thing for a transition time. So what you can do is to minimize the exposure to the outside environment as quickly as you possible.
Can I add a point?
Yes,
Please,
yes.
Alex.
Yeah, yeah. Even most of the clinics nowadays do the oil overlay, the cultures. There was one study done by Dr. Conahan long time back. We know that the pH safe pH range is 7.2 to 7.4, and ideal should be around 7.28 to 7.3. That is what we aim to have. So what they did to they with a 5% CO2 incubator, they put a media in a 4-well dish, 0.5 ml media and 1 ml media without oil overlay, and they got a 7.3 pH, and they took it out and kept outside for 5 minutes, and within that 5 minutes time, then they checked the pH again. It went up to 7.77. Okay, and they again put it back into the incubator, and it took around 30 minutes to regain the physiological pH of 7.3. That is without an oil overlay. And some study shows that even if you have an oil overlay also, the pH changes depends on what type of oil you are using, whether it is a light oil or heavy oil. If it's a heavy oil, it takes more time to equilibrate, and it takes more time also to lose the pH when you're handling outside. But when you put it back also, it takes more time to regain the pH. Yeah.
Also the thickness of the oil layer.
Yes, yes.
We have a penetration coefficient. So like if you keep very little oil on the culture dishes, so it is easier for the gases to penetrate in, but so stands true that they can diffuse out very quickly. So this is also what I was telling is about just the gamete handling. But if we go for the embryos also, so this stands true that we have to be very quick. And yes, as Dr. Alex explained.
Yeah, this is what I was also mentioning, because many clinics have that dry incubator. And now there is a lot of questions are being posed by the people who are using the dry incubator. What to do with that? Because study shows that osmolarity increases when you culture for 5 to 6 days. So people says that you can either use a thicker layer of media, so Dr. Sanjay ji has mentioned, or you can use a heavy oil, something like that, to avoid the operation and higher osmolarity of 300 milliosmol. That's detrimental. Yeah.
Okay. So, to Dr. Shukla again, the participant wants to know more. I mean, in the terms of during batch IVF, after semen preparation, should it be kept at room temperature or at 37 degrees? You clearly mentioned, maybe you would like to reiterate the same.
Yeah, so there are two things. Like if you are preparing the semen sample in like buffer, like the mops or hippies, so you can keep them outside the incubator at the room temperature. But if you are preparing the semen samples in the culture media, you do not have many options, because you most of the labs, they do not have many incubators where you can keep one incubator at maybe 25, 27 degrees centigrade. So then it becomes difficult. So, but I guess most of the batch IVF, they do ICSIs nowadays. So if they are doing ICSI, there is no harm you prepare your semen sample with the mops or is buffer and keep them at the room temperature. And when we say room temperature, again, we have to keep this in mind that this term room temperature is for something between 18 degree to 23 degree. So like if you come to the North India, in Rajasthan, the room temperature itself could be 37 degrees centigrade.
So once a sample is prepared, suppose, so how long you can take them outside the incubator? Keep it at room temperature.
Sorry, I didn't get you.
So once sample is prepared,
Mhm.
semen sample is prepared.
Okay.
So how long time we can wait to inseminate?
It is very well explained in the literature. So you like generally we do ICSI around 41 hours post HCG, and similarly something between like 39 to 41 hours, and conventional insemination around 43 hours. So if you are doing it earlier, it is not advisable. Alex?
There's another question. Denudation of the oocytes for ICSI, is it recommended to do it in culture medium under oil overlay, or to do using hippies or mops buffer? Which one is a better option?
Okay, so again, it depends what equipment do you have. Some people have those mini incubators and all with them, so they can do with the culture medium also. But again, if you are keeping them outside for a longer period of time, there is a pH shift, there is an osmolarity shift, and that could be detrimental. So the first thing, the thumb rule is do no harm. So most of the people, they do like what I do. Even if I'm using hippies buffer, I do an oil overlay. Even when I'm handling in the buffer, where I'm not worried about the pH shift much, still I'm using an oil overlay so that there is less evaporation, less pH shift also.
Okay. Alex, there's a question to you. How can you please explain how to measure the osmolality of the culture media? And it is an addition of mine is, do we have to recheck in our lab, or I thought because we used to do it before, but I guess now we just have to, we take what is given in the certificate of analysis. So what is your take on it?
Yeah, when you get your media and along with your certificate of analysis, that clearly shows what is osmolarity of the media. And most of the commercial media have the range from around a 255 to maybe up to 290 or maybe 285. So the wide range of media. And if it goes beyond that level, that is the studies by Dr. Jason Stein shows that if it goes beyond 300 with a long-term culture, that is going to be detrimental. And in the earlier days, as the questioner has mentioned, we used to have the osmometer in the laboratory. Yes. When you used to brew your own media, cook your own media. But now there is no need of those kind of a system in your place, because already the companies are giving you the osmolality level. Only thing is that we have to make sure that are we going to maintain that osmolality mentioned by the company or certificate of analysis when you are doing the continuous culture from day 1 to day 6 or 7, whatever it is. How we can do that by doing the Cairo consensus, by looking at everything. That's the only way.
And that's why the companies mention that once you open the bottle, you should consume the media within a speculated time. Even if the expiry is long, once you open the bottle, you should consume within the time.
That's why recently I heard from one of the talk, I think. Suppose you have taken some media from a bottle and there is something is remaining and you kept it back. And when you, another day when you start to make a dish, that will take more time to equilibrate. Because new media, that void space comes with the CO2 gas, they fill the gas there.
Right.
So that's already, there is some kind of equilibrium there. So I think that help to equilibrate faster. So if you are in a hurry stage, don't take a bottle that is half left. Take a new bottle of 10 ml media and equilibrate. And maybe with only 1 or 2 mm layer of oil, if you are in a hurry. Yeah, not a thick
Layer of oil.
Yeah, these are some practical tips in the Indian scenario.
You remember when we used to get those? Yeah. After some time, when you see the media in the refrigerator, it will be like pink,
Pinkish,
pink,
bright
as
pink,
opposed to a new pot. Yeah, bright pink, as opposed to a newer bottle, which should be on the amber shade of the color.
Yeah.
So I guess that is the key to seeing this. And same another question to you, Alex. Your experience with dual buffer media, does this have any added advantage?
I have looked at the biological outcomes, but definitely the study shows that when you look at the pH, we have to look at the pH at the 37 degrees Celsius, because we handle all the embryo, the gametes at 37 degrees Celsius. So the pK value for the HIPIS media at 37 degrees Celsius is around 7.35, something like that. But when it goes to the MOPS media, it is only 7.01. So if it is outside, external pH is 7.01, then a denuded oocyte internal pH will go down further. Okay, so that's not a good thing really. So I think it is maybe a good practice to use a dual media, dual buffered media, like a HIPIS and MOPS combination. Nowadays, some companies are making that. I think, especially when you are doing the ICSI, if it takes more time, I think it would be a good practice to use that.
Yes, that's a nice one. So I guess there's always a shift in the way we do the culture system. Slowly, we keep changing and making it better. This could be another one. Sanjay, there's a question for you. Can you comment on the contamination mediated via the manifold?
So any contamination is bad, any contamination. Most of the media, they contain the antibiotics, and if the amount of, because the way we handle media has a greater impact than the other conditions. Like I have had my training in microbiology and I had my research in microbiology. So those days when we used to work between two Bunsen burners and do the culture things, and then hardly get any contamination in the culture dishes. So it is how we handle the things. It is more important. So if it is coming, the contamination, like if we do a root cause analysis and we find that the contamination is coming from the air handling unit or the laminar flow itself, as I mentioned, that we need to take and change the filters at the regular time intervals, or the contamination from the operator himself or herself. I have seen, like when we go to the changing rooms, the dresses are hanging there. They just change those dresses and thinking that they are perfectly all right. but they may contain the spores, the microbes, and they can bring in them in the laboratory. So the contamination can come in from anywhere, and that can result in a disaster.
Can I
Yes.
add on more point? Yeah.
Yes, Alex.
Yeah. So when we talk about the clean room, I think it is not putting some kind of air handling unit. It is a properly a kind of a discipline. How
Yes.
the people are disciplined to work in that kind of environment, who is allowed to enter that area, what kind of things they can wear, all these things are very important. Even the changing room, that is also very important. I think we put a single room for male and one room for the female. That's a usual thing. Then the people come with their suit, coat, or whatever it is, enter that room, hang it over there, and they wear the clean room dress and enter into the clean room. That's usual practice. But if you really see some of the well-designed laboratories in some countries, they have a two kind of rooms in the changing room. First, they do the first room and change the whole thing, and then they take this thing and go to the other room and they put that clean room dresses. So that way you can avoid all kind of microbes that you are bringing from outside. Because clean room means a real clean room. There is no, I think,
Yes.
going here and there.
Absolutely. There's another question for you, Alex. How does a company decide on the expiry date of a medium?
That depends on, because definitely you can see the expiry date lifespan of media is maybe around 6 to 8 weeks. That's a usual thing. And now you have the media, the single step media, that is based on the simplex optimization. That's a kind of a mathematical modeling and engineering based on that. So that contains a lot of all the ingredients in the same system. And there is a lot of thermolabile growth factors and the amino acids are there. So because it is a proprietary thing for some of the company. So if they have declared that thing, we would have been in a different scenario, because no company declare about those things. So I think it is basically depending on the thermolabile substances, they decide what is the lifespan of the media. And also, there was, I think, one study came out in a human reproduction a few years back. They looked at the usage of media when it arrives in the laboratory, fresh media, and the media that is towards the expiry date. So they have seen a different kind of outcomes. I'm not sure whether it is a pregnancy or the neonatal health or something like that. So there is a difference when you use the media towards the expiry date. By the time maybe some of the thermolabile growth factors are already gone, maybe it's not in a bioactive form.
I guess. So there are questions, but then there are repetition of already the questions that we have already addressed, either in the talk or in the way of while we have answered the existing questions as well. So I guess we come to the end of the questionnaire that is being posted to us as well. Over to you, Swami.
Before we end, just one comment.
Sure.
It is regarding another malpractice, I should say, that people mix up two different kind of media by culturing their embryos. Like if they have a brand of medium from different company, and then they shift the medium, especially when they are using sequential culture media. So one should understand that these media are optimized, are formulated and designed by some scientists, and they have their own set of parameters, especially the osmolarity and pH, and as Dr. Alex mentioned, they have different ingredients in there. So they are optimized to work for that particular. So you should use the set of media from same brand. It's not advisable to use different media in same culture. Am I right, Alex?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That is why I think at least if they have to use it in a SOS situation, they should look at the osmolality of that other media that they are going to use it, whether it is some media maybe 255, maybe other media maybe 285. They're going to be osmotic shock.
Yeah.
So that happens. Yeah.
True. Over to you, Swami.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I should not thank you because we are the same family. So it's nice. Thanks for your time given. As a formality, I'll hand over to Dr. Bharat Mahajan to give words of thanks from Merck Fertility. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
So thank you very much, our speaker, Dr. Alex and Dr. Sanjay, for an excellent talk on a very innovative topic, what not to be done in a media handling and a gamete handling. And I think definitely this will help to all our attendees in their day-to-day practices. Along with that, I will also like to thank our moderator, Dr. Priya Kannan and Dr. Prakash Ved, for driving all the questions and taking all the questions and have a great discussion with the speakers. And with this, I will also like to thank Dr. Swaminathan for making this meeting happen. Because of his constant effort, we were able to conduct this an interesting scientific webinar in collaboration with ACE. Last but not the least, I really like to thank all the participants and attendees for taking out time and attending and making it a very interactive session by asking a lot of questions, which will definitely help them in their day-to-day practice. With this, we are officially going to conclude the session, but only a sincere request to all the attendees that there is at the bottom of your platform, you can see the feedback form. It will just take hardly 1 minute so that this can help us to improve ourselves in the next upcoming meeting. So with this, we officially conclude our meeting. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice session. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you.